Hello and welcome to the Olive Branch Media Education Hour podcast. My name is Nelson Ross Miller. I am your host, and I am here with
Bonnie Gunkel.
She is a retired dietitian of 63 years and owned her own business, Medical Nutritional Therapist. So, our first question is, what are some ways someone can live a healthy life from day to day with the help of a healthy diet?
Well, eating pattern is everything you eat. And it's important, and that you drink. And it's important that you recognize that it is all part of what you need each day. However, healthy eating matches your target calorie intakes because you don't want to eat extra calories that you don't need. So making sure that it is a healthy diet includes not too many calories that would add extra weight. And also, you want to consider all the calories from beverages as well as your food. Some people don't relate to what they're drinking, as adding calories as well. And maybe not such a healthy choice. So as far as eating more fruits and vegetables are probably the key that most people don't do for healthy eating. Eating whole grains as part of your total grain is very important too. It doesn't have to be all whole grain, but some whole grains are important. Being careful about fat intake, especially looking at lower fat or fat-free dairy choices, is an important way to make sure you're eating a little healthier. When you add the high fat cheeses and things like ice cream, those are, getting toward emptier calories for you because they add too many calories and not enough nutrition when you look at those dairy foods. Protein is key, and a variety of protein is important as well. And there are very good proteins out there to consume. But think in terms of lower fat items, like 90% ground beef is a lower fat choice for more healthy diet if you're going to eat beef. A beef tenderloin is a lower fat content of a steak, if that's what you like. Choosing pork loin where you trim fat is a better choice. Certainly eating a couple of servings of fish a week, is really important because that is a good way to get the wonderful fats that you need from fish. Fatty fishes like salmon and sardines, tuna are good choices there. And of course, poultry, but you want to eat chicken without the skin. And then how you prepare that protein is important. Don't fry foods, but grill or bake, or put it in a skillet and pan grill it. You can do that as well. Oils are important, but in limitation. You do need oil for some of the fatty acids that you need in the body, and they have a purpose as well. So avoiding high-fat oils, saturated fat oils, is key because they're the ones that are solid at room temperature. So you want to limit the amount of things like butter, stick margarine, things like that are solid at room temperature. There are some trans fats also that you want to be aware of. Things that when they've taken an oil and added hydrogen and it makes it a solid, because trans fats are not healthy either. The saturated fat and trans fats are not your better choices. So polyunsaturated fats like the oils or the margarines that are in a tub, softer margarines, are better choices when you're looking at things like that. So I guess an added sugar and sodium, you need to be careful about your choices there as well. Sodium, you need some sodium, some salt in the form of sodium chloride. We do that. That's salt. But you do want to be careful about not too much salt. And use other herbs and spices to season food. and that's a better choice for a healthier diet.
Okay. So the next question is, according to the CDC, heart disease is the leading cause of death. What diet and lifestyle changes can one make to help the offset chances of getting heart disease?
Well, nutrition is how food um, nourishes your body. So when you look at wanting to avoid heart disease, you have to look at the fats. They're the ones that probably are your worst enemy, the saturated fats and the trans fats. Um, some other things you need to be aware of: being overweight, um, having high blood pressure, having high cholesterol levels, low bone density. Those are all things that can affect your health, and those contribute to heart disease and other diseases and stroke. So, and osteoporosis is a big concern too when you look at heart health and your bone structure. You want to make sure that you're healthy overall because you need to have physical activity as well. And if you have poor bone structure, it's harder sometimes to get the physical activity going as well. And those are factors that affect your heart. Healthy eating and good physical activity, active living, is important. And you don't have to, go out and run or be in a gym necessarily for the activity for heart to help control that. But you do need to make sure that you do things around the house, up and down the stairs, taking a walk with a friend or your dog, working in your garden. Those are ways you get some activity. And then that combined with the nutrition that you consume hopefully helps with your heart. It's the saturated fat again that you want to be careful about. And the trans fats. So when you look at labels, if it says saturated fat, be aware of that. Look for trans fats as well on labels. That's important.
Okay, so the next question is what are some of the most common foods we eat that have bad fat in them?
Okay. Meat that's beef, like a steak that has a lot of marbling in it or a lot of fat around the edge. Those are poor choices to make. The skin of the chicken, you don't want to eat that fat. Trim fat, excess fat off the edges of like pork tenderloin. As I mentioned, the saturated fats that are hard at room temperature. That includes butter, also the fat found in sharp cheddar cheeses, well, all kinds of cheese that isn't lower in fat. Whole milk has a lot more fat in it that you don't want. Um, Also, it's important to recognize that fat happens when we fry things. So we don't want to use a lot of fried foods, even though maybe you're using the oil, which is a better fat. When you fry, you add too much calories to your diet as well. And so you want to limit the amount of oil that you use and hopefully don't fry things because that's not healthy. But using the vegetable spray and grilling in a pan is a little healthier way to use the fat. Monosaturated fats are fats that have a little hydrogen added to the oil. They're made from oil. And so that's soft tub margarine. But again, limit the amount that you use because too much fat is not healthy. Your diet should consist only of about probably 10% of saturated, less than 10% of saturated fat and a total of only 30% of your total calories. So watching those fats is important.
Following up on that question, what food should we try to avoid that are bad for our overall health?
Well, I mentioned high-fat cheeses, whole milk, um, fat found on meats and in meat, um, fried foods, high sugar content foods, cookies, candy, they're empty calories in the long run. Pie, cake, those are all things that have way too many calories. And if you're trying to maintain a good weight and eat healthy, you don't want, everything in moderation is okay, but to do excessive amounts is not good. A lot of people think, I could eat cake every day or cookie every day, and it's not always the best choice. It depends, again, on your activity level. If you don't burn many calories, you definitely don't want to eat a lot of sweets and saturated fats. So the foods that you do consume that are not such good, for your overall health, definitely would be anything containing a lot of sugar or high fat content.
Is there any additional information you would like to share?
Well, we've been talking about healthy lifestyle and wellness. So, wellness requires healthy eating, regular physical activity, and genetic makeup comes into play. Age and gender come into play, and lifestyle when you consider healthy eating and wellness. Sleep is very important. Getting enough sleep also contributes to your overall wellness. And avoiding smoking, managing your stress, alcohol only in moderation, if you even need to drink it at all. Medical checkups. Those are all very important things to consider for overall wellness. I don't know if you've heard the term, you are what you eat, but we are. And everything that we consume, drink, or eat becomes part of us. There are over 40 nutrients found in foods that we need. However, the best source that we have to remember to stay the healthy part of it is to be aware of what foods are best. So we'll talk a little bit about food. First of all, I'm going to say food things to consider that are important. Your culture when it comes to food. Traditions. A lot of times we have traditions. Certain times we get together with family, holidays, and things. Your budget for food. The food you like. Things that you really, really enjoy. And then knowledge about what are good foods for you. So learning a little bit more about good nutrition is key. Food's a source of pleasure, adventure, fun with people, eating. Those are all ways that you have food. But our body relies on life-sustaining function we get from the nutrients in food. So what are these nutrients? Carbohydrates. You probably heard that term. There are 6 food categories. Carbohydrates is one that we'll talk about. Carbohydrates provide energy. Those are our best sources for energy. And that's what we want to burn for energy. It's also very important. As carbohydrates break down in the body, they form glucose. And that's what feeds our brain and gives us the energy on which we are able to then have that active lifestyle that we need to maintain a good balance in nutrition and life. And then carbs, are fruits, vegetables, whole grain. They're sugars and starches, for the most part, that we consume in our diet. Fiber is part of the carbohydrate source, but it's not absorbed or broken down, but it does help with our gut health. And that's something that's to consider, that you make sure you get enough fiber through your carbs as well. Fats are our energy source as well. They also are important to carry the fat-soluble vitamins to the body. A, D, E, and K are considered the fat-soluble vitamins. So those are things that we want to make sure that we get enough fat. We don't eliminate fat totally, but we, again, go back. We'll talk a little more about better ways to manage your fat intake. but just remember that's one of the food groups. Protein is a food group. When it breaks down, it's called amino acids, and that's what builds the body, repairs cells, keeps all the things in good function. If we don't eat enough carbs or fat, we eat mostly protein, then we're going to burn the protein for energy, and it's not going to repair the body or repair the tissue or make new skin that we need all the time. So it's important to remember protein is an important source for us as well. Vitamins. I mentioned the fat-soluble A, D, E, and K. A is important for eye health. D helps us with muscle movement and calcium absorption. So again, bone health comes into play. E is an immune function in our body, and it's important that we get that as well. Almonds are a good source of those. And, when we think about the A vitamins, those are like the broccoli and the sweet potatoes and things that are orangey or dark green. And D, as I mentioned, comes from a source of D is in milk. It's vitamin A and D. There's calcium and D in milk. So those are good. Vitamin K helps our blood coagulate, so we need some of that as well. Spinach and kale and broccoli are good sources. Then we get to the B vitamins, and there are a bunch. Thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, B6, folic acid, B12, biotin, chlorine. These all help regulate the energy in the cells. They're like the spark plug that keeps our energy source going into those cells, and that we burn those calories and use them for our energy source. Thiamine, most of those vitamins are peanut butter, meat, pork, turkey, spinach. Those are sources of all those B vitamins. Another area are the minerals, and we have lots of minerals too vitamin C. I almost forgot about vitamin C. Vitamin C is really important because that's where we get the collagen buildup, and it helps to keep our body in good shape as well. And it keeps us from bruising. It heals the gums, when we have injury or something. Vitamin C is important. We get that mostly from citrus, like orange juice is a great source of vitamin C. Tomato juice, broccoli, cantaloupe, those are all good sources. And then the fifth group are the minerals. And again, they are the spark plugs of the body too, because they're the ones that keep the body in good structure. Build bones, keep the body fluid balance. When it comes to chloride and sodium and potassium, those all control our fluid balance in the body. So each one of them has a special need. Iron is key for the red blood cells. So those are all areas that those minerals are also very important for all the body processes. And the most important that I think is water. That's our sixth category, because we forget about water. We don't count water as an important part of our nutrition in terms of healthy body and healthy lifestyle. But it is. Getting enough water is important. Or other fluids that are liquid but are not high in sugar. So, a lot of people drink a lot of pop and juice, and those aren't your best choices because too much sugar is in a lot of that. But water is key. So, they recommend 6 to 8 glasses of water, 8-ounce glasses of water a day. Coffee has been proven that it is not a terrible source, and tea, but in moderation. You don't want to drink a pot of coffee, but 2 or 3 cups of coffee in the morning, that's what you like, is good. Water regulates all the body processes. It carries the nutrients to the cells, and it carries the waste away from the body. So it is an important part of keeping our body healthy. Calories provide the energy need, and they give the balance that we need to be able to do the activity. But again, it's important that we remember that we want to make sure that we balance our calories with what we need. so we don't add too many calories and gain weight. So I was going to talk a little bit more about fat because I think that that's probably confusing to a lot of people. And when you look at the fats, the saturated and the monosaturated, the trans fats, the polyunsaturated, it sounds like crazy, and but they are important, and they do provide satisfaction if you think about the fats that we do consume. So the important thing, again, buy lean meat and poultry. Use poultry without the fat, and look at those things when you come to your meat. Choose mostly low-fat or fat-free milk and cheese products. Limit cakes, pies, cookies, things like that, because they add a lot of fat as well. They're usually made with butter, margarine, shortening, and other things that are also high in fat that we think about that we like are ice cream, bacon, ribs, hot dogs, sausage. Those are all very high-fat foods as well. Cook with vegetable oil instead of butter, but again, limit the amount. Avoid chicken fat and lard. Those are not good choices. Stick margarine is not a good choice. Read the ingredient label. Limit foods that have saturated or trans fats. Check the nutrition fact label for other nutrition items as well. If you use butter, just a small amount. Switch from butter to oils or soft tub margarines is a better choice. And the other thing that I want to talk about are your hand and how you can use that to make choices with food. Your fist equals a cup size. So if you think about when you're eating foods, vegetable and fruits, we want a cup of those. So that's not so bad. Pasta is another thing that might be a cup. Maybe some rice. Beans, like navy beans, baked beans, lima beans, those corn, all of those are starchy. Some of those are starchy things, but a cup would be, adequate. When you make a small cup in your hand, and that becomes about 2-ounce size. So something that you might eat 2 ounces of might be pretzels, some cheese, maybe some cheese, something like that, if it's low fat. When you make a very small cup, it's about 1 ounce. Your thumb is a good guide. The full thumb equals about 1 ounce, and then your thumb to the first knuckle is about a tablespoon, and your fingertip to the first knuckle is about a teaspoon. So those sometimes help us make better choices when we're looking at, if we're out eating somewhere and we don't have measuring cups, then just remembering that that's a good choice. Now, how much food do I want to eat? When it comes to fruits and vegetables, they're our main source of carbohydrates. And starches are our main source. So fruits and vegetables, let's take a daily meal plan. If you're around 1,800 calories a day, probably 3 cups of vegetables a day is good. And a cup isn't hard to get. Think about lettuce, green beans, tomatoes, things like that. When you eat a salad, you probably got a cup and a half of vegetable right there. But about 3 cups of vegetables, about a cup and a half to 2 cups of fruit, about 6 servings of grains, which includes bread, pasta, rice, cereals like oatmeal or dry cereals. But again, watch the sugar content of dry cereals. Pick those that don't have a lot of sugar. Those are good carb sources in your diet. A potato is another good source of a starchy carb. When it comes to your protein, think in terms of The palm of your hand is about 3 ounces. So you want about 5 to 6 ounces of protein total a day. So an egg would be considered 1 ounce. So think in terms of if you eat an egg in the morning, then you would limit maybe to only a couple of ounces at lunch, whatever protein you might want to eat, and maybe 3 at dinner. When it comes to your fats, you want to make sure that you don't overdo. And remember that a teaspoon of margarine or a teaspoon really of dressing add extra fat. So you want to make sure that you're not overdoing. And then it's important to include 3 cups of dairy a day, low-fat dairy or fat-free. Milk, yogurt are your best choices to get the lower fat content. Cheese comes into play. Remember, ice cream is a very high-fat dairy product, so limit that. Overall, meeting your needs to maintain your weight, give you enough calories for the activity that you like to do is key.
Okay. Some questions I have following up on that we talked about outside of this are about bone density and what people can do to make sure their bones aren't, it would be weakening if they lacked the nutrition. Now, to follow up with that, is there a difference between how much a male or female should consume depending on their age?
Yes, young children need the calcium and vitamin D to make sure that they get the calcium deposited in their bone. So that's why milk is such a key item for young children. Usually breast milk contains enough if the mother's diet as well. Also baby formulas. But as children then, each child as they reach different ages definitely need to make sure they get their dairy products. As we, a lot of teens get away from milk, and that's the worst thing to do because they're still growing. And so they definitely need to use, I think milk is their best source most of the time if they're willing to drink it. Chocolate milk has a lot of sugar in it. It's not the best choice, but children do like it. So sometimes a chocolate milk once in a while isn't terrible. It depends on their calorie needs. Usually young people are pretty active, so they'll burn the calories pretty well. But not all chocolate. Mostly lower fat milks are better. And cheese is a good source, and yogurt's an excellent source too. And some of the Greek yogurt especially has a higher protein content, which also helps. The bones, we build bones with protein, but the calcium and vitamin D is what gives it the strength.
Okay.
When you mentioned osteoporosis. So what happens is if as we get older, we tend to, if we don't consume the dairy products throughout our life, our bones will weaken. Osteoporosis is a result of that because our bones don't have strength. And that's when people, particularly in their older years, tend to fall. They, and break bones so easily. I've had a couple of falls and not broken a bone because my calcium level has been good all my life. And I've found that when they do a test on me, I'm way above the level that I need to be in my bones. So, but as a nutritionist, I have made an effort to drink milk. I continue to drink milk at least 2 or 3 times a day in some form, milk or yogurt.
Okay. Well, it is summertime and it's getting hot out. One of the thoughts that popped up um, in my mind was there's a lot of things that people drink that dehydrate them. Um, so, what can people do to avoid that? Obviously, we did speak about nutrition labels. If you look at some of the quote unquote electrolyte drinks, one of the ones I read had a 90% sugar content. So, you're taking in all that sugar and you're dehydrated on top of it. Um, it was told to me that when you drink one of those, you need to drink a cup of water before. Um, but yeah, so what drinks do we need to stay away from that dehydrate us?
Just remember, caffeine will dehydrate you. So caffeine is found in coffee, tea, most soft drinks, colas and Dr. Peppers and things like that. So you want to avoid those, along with the fact that they contain sugar. Water is an excellent source. And if you're meeting your needs in terms of fruits and vegetables, you're probably getting what you need in terms of your body needing the electrolytes it needs. So the important thing is a good balance in your diet and enough non-caffeine product, non-sugar product is good for liquids. So things like water. There are some fruit-flavored waters that have no calories. Those would be okay. But just plain water is what's really important in your diet every day. And as I said, 2 or 3 cups of coffee, if you need that in the morning. You can use decaf coffee or decaf iced tea, and that would be okay if you wanted to drink something like that later in the day. But you do want to watch your total caffeine intake too, because that will definitely dehydrate you. And remember, you sweat, that dehydrates you. So when you realize that you're out in the heat and it's really a hot day, you probably need to make sure you drink a little more water. That would be your best bet.
Now, is there anything that people can eat to get those electrolytes rather than relying on the sugary so-called sports drinks?
Well, electrolytes are potassium, the sodium, those things that we talked about. So, orange juice is a good source of potassium. I think when it comes to, well, potassium is found in dairy, milk. I think if you think in terms of good nutrition, comes down to recognizing that if I eat a variety of foods, fruits, and vegetables, those are where I get most of those electrolytes. And I've already mentioned the importance of 2 to 3 cups of vegetable a day and a couple of cups of fruit a day. And those are all really good sources where you're going to get those. So it's up to people to remember that you don't just eat meat and potato. You add the fruits and vegetables and the dairy products and your grains. And those are all good sources for overall nutrition needs.
Okay, well, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.